Happy Sunday to the clergy. Happy Sunday to the family, friends, and followers of CCEM joining us on the different platforms. First Sunday in May, 5th month in this year that has been declared the year of abundance. I bring you good news. The good news that I share with you today is He is still leading. He is still leading. We start by looking at Psalm 37 verse 23, and then we hop over to look at Proverbs 16 and verse 9. Psalm 37:23, Amplified Version reads, "The steps of the righteous are directed and established by the Lord, and He delights in His way and blesses His path." The Good News translation of said scripture reads, "The Lord guides us in the way we should go and protects those who please Him." Proverbs 16:9, Solomon described to us in 1 Kings 4, if you look at 30 to 32, we'll see it as one who obtained much wisdom, and centuries later he was celebrated as the proverbial Israel. This wise man said to us in Proverbs 16 verse 9, "A man's mind plans his way as he journeys through life, but the Lord directs his steps and establishes them." Good News Version, "You may make your plans, but God directs your actions." One king selected by God in reflective or introspective mode, whichever you consider it to be, goes through the archive of his mind and his journey with God. And he comes to this place in scripture where he says, "I have come to share with you as I have recognized. The steps of the righteous are actually directed and established by God. The Lord delights in the way of one who seeks to please Him with his life and blesses his path." Later, this great king is succeeded by his son, another handpicked by God. He too, introspective mode, if you will, his own journey now with God. And he comes to a similar conclusion as his father. A man's mind plans his ways as he journeys through life, but it is the Lord who directs his steps and establishes them. Yes, we may make our plans as intellectual beings, but at the end of the day, when we commit our will, purpose, and intent to God, it is He who directs the actions that we take. Earlier this week, I was right here sitting in my office, and I was preparing what I hope to be a chapter from my new book. And my spirit was brought to this scientific phenomenon, which is the ring around the sun. The ring around the sun is described as a rare celestial event that is caused by the cirrus cloud that makes, in truth, it's really tiny crystals that seem to encircle the sun. Now, these crystals, they put on a show, if you will, and in their show, they give a radius of 22 degrees. But the big performance is done all the way at 20,000 feet above where we stand. But as we look up, we gaze and we marvel at this rare phenomenon. It has been studied by those who dabble in science and biology for some time, and they have come to the conclusion, they call them the weather folklore phenomenon. They've come up with the conclusion that, hey, this ring around the sun and sometimes around the moon, it happens when there's a storm system over an area. And so they function as a kind of harbinger, which is the messenger that says a storm is coming. But their presence, what it actually means scientifically, is that that area where it is present will experience rain in as early as the next 24 hours. I reflected on this phenomenon as a way, as a kind of precursor to going into the chapter that I was talking about. And then it drew to mind the rainbow. The rainbow is not so rare, but it is equal in its grand display, if you will, in terms of the fascination around how the rainbow is formed. And I began to do a comparison in my mind. This ring around the sun, which is called the halo, and the rainbow, one a rare celestial occurrence and one more frequent, one we have come to understand, and we see the scriptural significance of the rainbow. We know it from the time of Noah and the ark and the flood. But the halo, not so much. And I began to wonder if there was ever a verse in scripture where the halo was present and what it meant at that time, so that I could draw from it perhaps some conclusion as to what it might mean, not just scientifically, but spiritually. And a verse in the Old Testament came to mind. It's Ezekiel 1 and verse 27. In this verse, the children of God are in captivity, and Ezekiel is at a low, and he, in the low of his moment, he has a vision of God, and the clouds open and God appeared the same way like the halo. He comes to him as a ball of fire, and around this ball of fire was the presence of brilliant, bright light. So you can look at Ezekiel 1:27 when you have a moment, and you can see the similarity between scientific phenomenon that we look at in the sky and the scriptural phenomenon that we're talking to. Remember, the clouds open, and there's a detailed description of the manner in which God appeared. But in verse 37 itself, he takes the same form of the halo that we see, where, remember, the sun is a ball of light. And so God comes in the form of a ball of light, and around this ball of fire, around this ball of fire, then there is just this brilliant light that is illuminating, and we see the halo concept. Now, when we think of the halo as a rare phenomenon, if we go scriptural, since we were in Ezekiel, we can think of some of the super paranormal things that God did, the show-off moments, and our minds can go to these halo moments, so to speak, if we think of Moses and the children crossing the Red Sea, and the extra Jesus is showing, God is showing his presence for his people. And we can think too of a halo moment, perhaps with Joshua and the walls of Jericho, God in his big display of might and power, also rare. We can perhaps think too of Peter walking on water, as well as Peter's, shall I say, extraordinary escape, his remarkable escape from prison, where the angels come and just open the door and say, come on, guy. And he's going out and thinking he's in a dream, only to find it is one of those moments where God just show up and show off. So we could also perhaps think of the halo as a kind of power that God allows to be transferred from one believer to another. And we can see that in the incident with Elijah, passing on this almost tangible, potent power to Elisha. And so our minds will allow us to go to those rare moments, those halo moments in scripture. And in those moments, we cannot miss the remarkable display and presence of God. Then I scratched my head as I was there working on the chapter. And I began to ask some questions. And I asked, is it a case that we have come to this place as believers where if we don't see the halo moments, the presence, forceful reminder of God's presence in our lives, that we believe perhaps that it is not there? So in other words, just because we can't see the covering around us, because remember, he has called us into his marvelous light. So we have come to be joint heirs with him. So we're kind of in the middle there. And then he puts his edge of protection around us. The enemy himself admits it in the scenario with Job, that you have put your edge around him so we can actually see ourselves being a part of the halo, the grand display of the might, sovereignty, and right of God. Whoa, what a remarkable image of who we are to God who has promised us. Listen to me, my children. This, I commit to you, is going to be a year of abundance. And here we are, month 5. Some of us have not seen what it will look like yet. Some of us are looking for it in different ways, perhaps more tangible and potent ways, like the grand display, of the situations we're describing in scripture. And then I am led to ask, even as I was asked in my mind, when we don't see the extraordinary, here is a question I wrote down. Yes, it's easy to recognize the presence of God in those grand halo moments, but does it mean that when we are not able to see the grandeur of God, he isn't there? Just because we don't see it. Remember, we're children of faith now. We're called to live opposite to our humanity, if you will. The human sense is trained that we believe after having seen. And it says, no, my children don't work like that. My children, the children of the light, the children who are caught up in this halo, they feed off the energy of my light. I am the sun, both literally and figuratively. It's a nice pun there. I am the sun. I am the light from which they feed. I form the ring of protection around them, and I want them to understand. I want them to live by faith. So I want you to believe first, because you have seen, understood, and know me, and then trust that I will cause you to see. And here we are with this question. Just because we can't see what we are expecting, does it mean that the presence of God, the favor of God, is not with us? We have an enemy. The devil, he is called the adversary, Satan, whatever name you give him. We have an enemy who is particularly skilled. It seems that he has spent years training, centuries even, on how to recognize those people of God who have the halo around them. He's expressly interested in them, because we know his intention is to disrupt the harmony that we have with God, and to see if his insertion can perhaps disrupt the faith and confidence that we have in God. So we find that this enemy being so skilled that when we met him in Job 1, he comes and he makes a boast. Oh, I have been roaming to and fro the earth. And God asks a question. And yes, we know we have gone through that scripture to look at the way in which God seemed to have put Job out there. But let us look at this same scripture now through a slightly different lens. God uses this scenario to show us firsthand how the devil operates. In other words, study the enemy. He roams to and fro, seeks an opportunity, and it gives us a greater insight. It says that the devil knows the children of God. He can recognize the halo around us, even when we cannot. So when our hands and hearts and minds are busy doing other things, the devil is watching us to be able to detect, recognize, and disrupt the link that we have, the circle of God that is keeping us safe, the protective shield, the barrier that he has around us. How comforting it is to know that he cannot penetrate that halo unless he asks permission. It's not just in the Old Testament. We learned about it again with Peter. He said to Peter, the devil desires to sift you like wheat, but I'm going to pray a prayer for you that the halo will return. Yeah, I'm going to give him permission to disrupt. Make him disrupt the halo. Let him come and sift you, so to speak. But I have put things in place, says the God who we have given our lives to, that no permanent damage will occur. Because though he is allowed access, and perhaps he is able to see the light of my countenance on you, I have hidden myself from him in the core of your hearts. This is where I will attach myself to. The ark, our pastor loves to say, is now within us. The presence and power of God is now moved from a physical, literal temple in our hearts. And it is here that he really connects with us. And yes, we might be rocking one way, another way, the heat, the battering, we stagger perhaps like a drunkard sometimes, but the connection, he who holds our heart in place. That's why it's so important to give God your heart. It doesn't matter what you're feeling. If you feel like your heart filthy, you say, Lord, I give unto you my filthy heart. Please clean me. Remember, both Isaiah and Jeremiah recognize the error of the ways and they call it out. Lord, I am a man of unclean lips. Lord, I am not worthy. They have called out to God what is wrong. They have exposed themselves naked, their flaws before God. And it is God now who sees the integrity, the honesty of them, the authenticity in their relationship with him, not putting on a facade, a show of goodness like I have it all together. And I am also worthy and thank you for choosing me. Not a Pharisees kind of reaction, no. But a godly man, a righteous response. I'm seeing myself according to the true standard by which I am measured. And I'm woefully lacking, God. My heart, not right. My lips need help. And having exposed themselves thus, God was able to deal with them, protecting them, giving them more than they perhaps thought they deserved, investing in them more than they thought they could handle, and stabilizing them by letting them know that I will from henceforth, I will from henceforth be our remarkable presence round about you. I'll be a force to reckon with for any who stand up against you. And we have that force to reckon with even when the devil comes against us. God is still in our hearts the force that he is coming up against. Yes? And so we're supposed to have that kind of confidence in God. So yes, our hearts, it's not our job while we are doing the work of God. It's not our job while we are on mission for God. It's not our job having committed and submitted to the will, purpose, and intent of God to now sit down and pay attention to all the things that the devil trying to do to sidetrack. Yes, we must be alert to what he's doing, but we ought not to be flustered to the degree where we sit down and worry, and we sit down and we are plagued by fear and wondering what next. And no, man, the situation too big, and what will God do? When will the that's not our job. Our job is to keep our confidence in the God who has demonstrated how capable he is. He's capable in the phenomenal moments. I can bring about the phenomenal in your life if that's what you want to see. But I can also keep you steady in the storm. Have you not seen me with Peter is the question. Have you not seen how I steadied him while he sank? Have you not seen me with those who felt themselves unworthy? Have you not seen how I have kept them? This is our question. And here we are. We must remind ourselves daily that God is still leading. And he is the one who will root and reroute us in the way that we should go. Yes, we're intelligent beings, so we should go about making plans. The scripture says, set your plans before the Lord and he will make them prosper. David told us that. So yes, by virtue of the fact that we have free will and we are intelligent beings, we are to make plans. But we are to know too, having made those plans, either undoubtedly or unwaveringly, that it is God who directs the actions that we take thereafter. We are to know that he will establish us where he wants us to go, where he wants us to be. We are to know that he delights in his accomplishments in us. Hear this part. Whether it is the pains through which he can teach us how to be strong at heart and in spirit, whether it is the disappointments that he will use to cause us to focus, whether it is the tests that he will use to prune our faith and our confidence in him, whether it is the high points in our lives that he will use to bring glory to himself, we are to know that he blesses us in the good times, in the bad times, in the highs, in the lows of our lives. Know that the halo of God, that the presence of God is there, even if it is not in its elaborate form. God bless you.